Great. I see your colleague, Mrs. Lee there also. I know she asked, will help us with some of the questions as they come through. Do you want to just guide people how the best way to ask questions later on?
Yeah, she will be my co-host. Very, very important helper. Okay, and good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Wei Song, Chairman of Cambridge Chinese Community Center, just in case you don't know me. Welcome you all to today's meeting. Your participation is greatly appreciated. Wish you all have an enjoyable evening. As you may know, this is the second election meeting we have organized this year. The first one was with the candidates from Labour Party. In the last meeting, we have heard some blamings from Labour on Conservatives. A Conservative friend of mine who has attended the meeting told me afterwards that the meeting was a torture to him, as he didn't agree with what our Labour candidate said, and he also didn't have a chance to speak back. So today, I will give you, our Conservative friends, a chance to express your view, and we, as audience, can hear another side of the story. First of all, I would like briefly introduce our Chinese community and the community center to our Conservative candidates, in case you don't know much about the community, but I think probably you know already. The Chinese community is the largest ethnic minority group in Cambridge. According to the census of 2011, nearly 5,000 Chinese live in Cambridge city alone. I believe that the size of our community has increased a lot after 10 years. I just guess probably the size has doubled. This is why I keep telling my politician friends in Cambridge that when the support of our community is important, probably you will win the election. Cambridge Chinese Community Center is a registered charity set up in 1997. Every year, we organize some big celebrations, such as the Chinese New Year, Dragon Ball Festival, Mid-Autumn Festival, and Christmas. We also run weekly events such as children Chinese classes, junior classes, adult Tai Chi and dancing class, etc. Those activities are open to everyone in the city. And actually, it's not only limited to cities. A lot of people from other cities coming to join us. The activities has attracted many local people to participate. During the pandemic, Cambridge Chinese Community Center has donated over 50,000 face masks to hospitals, care homes, schools, police, ambulance, local residents, etc. We have also donated £4,000 to hospitals. There were many individual donations too. Now I would like to invite Conservative candidates introduce themselves and their plan if they win the election. So I started from Darryl Preston. He is the candidate for Police and Crime Commissioner for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough.
Thanks very much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm just going to check. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, that's brilliant. You're quite right. It's Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, so I've got the whole county that I need to go out and talk to. But really enjoying myself so far. I'm out there with our local candidates in Peterborough, in Cambridge today, and I was in Waterbeach most of the day today, you'll be pleased to hear. A little bit about me. So I live in East Cambridgeshire with my family and my 2 dogs. I'm an ex-policeman. I joined the Metropolitan Police in 1984. Lots of frontline and neighbourhood policing there, but I transferred to Cambridgeshire in 1998. And I started my career in Cambridgeshire with you in Parkside in Cambridge, both from the front line and then as a detective. So Cambridge, very close to my heart, know the city very well indeed. So I most of my career then went into the detective area. So I was a senior detective, lots of experience with serious crime, child protection, and dealing with homicide and management of sex offenders and that sort of thing. When I retired from the police after 30 years, as in what we tend to do after 30 years, still currently that's the retirement age, I joined the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners in London. That's at the centre of Westminster and Whitehall, where you're advising police and crime commissioners on national policy. So I gained a lot of experience there. I thought it would be useful just to talk about what a PCC does. Some on the call may know, some may not. I'm talking to people on the doorstep. I find that most people have heard it, but they don't really know what they do. So a few things. The first thing, the most important thing, and this is in law, the PCC needs to listen and act on the concerns of the residents, the people who elect you. They set a police and crime plan, and this is a plan, a strategic plan that the police must follow, the chief constable must follow. They're responsible for a budget. So the budget for our police force, Cambridgeshire Constabulary, is currently 165 million. And that's why it's really important that you vote for someone who has the background and experience to deal with that kind of money. They can hire and fire the chief constable, and they hold the chief constable to account. And then there's a number of other things like they commission victims services. But let me be clear, my view is this, and I know it's the view of government and our current Home Secretary. This isn't just an admin role. You know, this shouldn't be someone that just oversees the finances. This should be about crime fighting. And that's, you know, at heart, that's what I am. I'm not a politician. Obviously, I'm standing as the Conservative candidate. My values are Conservative. I'm a party member and I will support our other candidates. But as I say, my background is policing. Very briefly, my strategic priorities, and this is born from listening to residents and looking at surveys up and down Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. The first one is more police officers. That's what most people are telling me. They want to see more police cutting crime, keeping our communities safe. We're fortunate because we've got a government, 20,000 national uplifting officers. Here in Cambridgeshire, we're going to see 1,700 police officers. That's way more than we've ever had. When I joined in 98, there was 1,300. So I'm not going to talk about the opposition very much, as they may have done with us. But what I will say is this, they will say, well, that's just replacing all those that you lost. Not so in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. We've never had this many police officers. But my second priority is around putting communities first, making sure the police are in contact with communities. That comes back to our conversation today, Dr. Son. You know, the police need to be in contact with all our communities. We need to make that happen. And we need more police officers to do that. Fighting organised crime. Now, I've got a background as a detective in fighting serious crime. Let me tell you why I think it's important. We know in Cambridge, in other cities, and we know in our towns and even in our villages that drugs are an issue. There are people out there making a lot of money. It's a business. They don't pay taxes. They have a fancy lifestyle, and they're living off the misery of others. And what's more, that misery manifests itself in our communities by people burgling houses, you know, antisocial behaviour, stealing from cars, robbery. We talked about robbery earlier and how the Chinese community have had to suffer this terrible crime. And then moving on, another priority is better prevention, because I'm a realist. I've worked in the police. We need to tackle crime before it becomes crime. You know, early interventions with troubled families and getting people out of the life cycle and getting into the criminal justice in the first place. And there's a couple of others, one maybe not so important to Cambridge, but rural crime, 70% of our county is rural. I said already, all of our communities, so we need to focus on those a little bit as well. But safer roads, because when I talk to people, speeding and accidents are a real issue for people, and so it should be. It should be, because more people are killed and injured on our roads than as a result of crime. I think there was 40 killed across our county last year and 400 seriously injured, and that's just shocking. We need to do more about that. Just a couple of local priorities, and I'll be quiet and let my colleagues take the helm. We spoke earlier about hate crime. Now hate crime, it's a term that's used. What it really means is that it's any crime where there is an element of racism, or it's around sexual orientation, etc., things like that. It's totally unacceptable. The police, I know, do take it very seriously, and I would absolutely encourage people that if they are a victim of any kind of hate crime, please do report it, because the people who perpetrate this, people who you know, the criminals and the yobs or whatever, who say and do these sort of things, they will say it to other people, and it can escalate. So I encourage people to report. In Cambridge, antisocial behaviour, we've already talked about drugs, and we need to do something about that. And then the dreaded bike theft. Now, our city of Cambridge has a reputation of being the bike theft capital of the country. We need to do more about that. Not just the police, you know, at least the council, at least local businesses. I will be strong on that, and I will bring together a task force, and it will be a task force that works. I would use the PCC convening powers. Very lastly, just let me say one thing around policing strategically. It's changing. We're seeing new crimes as we are tonight, all benefiting from the brilliance which is the World Wide Web. Unfortunately, the criminals also benefit from it as well. And this is a new threat. It's a new thing, and it needs a bit of a change in the way that we police. So yes, we want policemen out on the beat, policemen and women out on our beat. We want to be able to see the police. We want better reactions to crimes that happen when we call them. But we actually also need the police policing the internet, because there's some really quite frightening things that go on there, you know, like child abuse, etc. But actually, you're more likely to be a victim of crime, cybercrime, than any other crime, particularly fraud. So that's me. Any questions, however you want to deal with this, more than happy to take them. But just to say, I am passionate about our county. I'm passionate about Cambridge. If elected in May, I will do my utmost to keep all of our communities safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darryl. PPC job is very, very important. I'm very happy to know community first is your second priority. That's very important for us. I believe you will have a lot of questions later on. Okay, now should we ask Steve George? He married a Chinese lady. Probably we all, as a Cambridge Chinese, probably you know.
Yeah, you might know my wife. Come into the camera, honey. Well, there you come forward.
She's a writer. She writes a lot of interesting articles. Okay, so let me pass the mic to Steve. Steve, please.
Thank you, Ni Man Hao. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm someone who is married to a Chinese lady. I just wanted to introduce my wife. Many of you know Tai Feng. Come into the camera, darling.
Yeah.
There she is.
Doesn't
That's if you go close.
Okay,
That's great.
fine.
I suggest that your wife should have another camera.
Yeah,
we can see her.
maybe. I'll get her to connect in on her laptop as well. That's a good idea. And I've stood before as a city council candidate back in nearly 18 years ago, when we still had many Conservatives on the local city council and of course the county council candidates. This year is very special, and I wanted to explain to your community about what a special and amazing opportunity this year is for you all to make a big difference. And if you'll indulge me, I'll just try and explain a little bit about what's happening in local politics and why we have such a great opportunity this year. Of course, there was no election last year in 2020 because of the pandemic. We had some city councillors that stood down for various reasons. And so there have been some gaps on the representation around the city. And then also another legal thing that happened is that the boundaries, as Cambridge has grown, the boundaries changed. And as the boundaries and different people are represented by different parts of the city and different councillors, it's a requirement for all of the candidates to be re-elected. And so that's something special that's happening this year, is all 42 candidates for the city are being re-elected. I'm very proud to say that I've been involved in helping select some of our candidates, and I was recently made the deputy chairman of Cambridge Conservatives. And in that role with our chair lady, Poppy, and others, we have put together a great selection of enthusiastic, committed Conservatives that are standing in every seat bar one. There's just one of there's 41 people we have available. And we also have people for the many city council, county council seats, I should explain, that are also up for election in the city because of these boundary changes. So you have an opportunity to vote for 3 candidates in the city and a candidate for the county, and of course our Police and Crime Commissioner candidate and the mayoral candidate. So there are literally 5 different votes that you can put, 5 crosses on your ballot sheets. I've already done my voting. I was postal vote, and some people have already received their postal vote. And it will be in a similar format where you are invited to put a cross next to your candidates. And this year you have a lot of choice, and it's perfectly acceptable and correct to pick 3 candidates. It explains that for the city. And you can even, with the Police and Crime Commissioner, you even have a choice to pick a second candidate. So if, say, you weren't sure, maybe you wanted the, you felt passionately about what Labour said the other night about their candidate, and you wanted to pick them as your second candidate, you could do that, or you could pick our candidate as the second candidate. So this is one of the extra choices you have in that. So don't be, if you have any other questions, I can help later on about this process. I'm happy to help. But it's quite a special year. You all can make a big difference. I feel that I have a little knowledge of the Chinese community thanks to my wonderful better half. I like to call her my better half. She has been very helpful and very fantastic support for me. And I have been very fortunate to spend, most years I spend a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks in China, visiting her family in Nanchang, Jiangxi province. And I've been learning a little bit of Chinese. I've even learned to sing in Chinese. My wife said, you should sing a Chinese song tonight. Maybe everybody will vote for you. And there was something I was considering doing, but maybe we'll do it as a celebration if I'm elected. Okay, that's my promise. If I'm elected and like some of our Conservatives elected, that's my promise. I'll sing you a song in Chinese. How about that? That's got to be worth something. But seriously, you have a great opportunity. to make a big difference on the city council. We have a bit of a split council. We have sort of, Labour has a small control and Liberals have some small control. And if we can just get some more Conservatives onto the council, I think we can get into a position where we don't have one particular political party controlling, and just 2 or 3 Conservatives elected to the city council will make a big difference, because then we can start to set up the links that are needed with the government. We have a Conservative government. I am a big fan of Boris. Boris gets things done. Boris has been getting the vaccine done and getting the country back on its feet, okay? But there is no connection to the national government in the city council, and that's lacking. There's no connection for the county council within the city, and that's missing. And I really think we have an opportunity to serve you all better by having that government link. Even Labour admitted that, you know, the way they were able to build more homes within the city was because the government gave £70 million. Okay, and I believe that as Conservatives in the city council and in the county council for you guys, we can tap into more of those government resources, which isn't happening presently. So I'm happy to take any questions, and I'd love to introduce another one of some other of my colleagues. I think you have a little bit of information about them, Dr. Song. So who would you like to speak to next, or if you have any questions, do ask.
Thank you, Steve. I like your t-shirt. I like China, that t-shirt. And I can't waiting for your singing Chinese song. I think actually you probably should do more when after you elected. You might ask to have a party.
Yeah, we certainly have a party after the election, and I'd like to sing my favorite Chinese song at one of your events. That'd be fun if people would like that. Okay, singing is a little hobby of mine. Singing's a hobby of mine. And I know actually our Laurence Fischer candidate is very musical as well. So maybe we can put something together, Laurence.
Yeah, I heard that you are good at piano and musician actually. Can you talk more about you, Laurence?
Yeah. I can. I mean, I can talk all about the music as well if you want, although that's not strictly relevant today. Although it is what led me to Cambridge. I was 9 years old when I moved here from Australia in order to sing. That was at St. John's as a chorister there, and then the music it allowed me to go from one great educational establishment to another, and so I ended up using music to give me scholarships, which is for anyone with musically inclined children, look into the scholarships, because they open all sorts of opportunities which might be closed to you otherwise. So do consider that. It worked really well for me and for other people in my family, and a lot of my friends. Anyway, coming back to me in Cambridge now, I work as a piano tuner, so I'm still working with pianos. I play the piano a lot. Before anyone asks, I don't teach the piano. That's something that I always get asked about, when talking about any of this stuff. And it's a huge pleasure for me to be able to go to lots of people's homes. Outside of the pandemic, I might be going to 500 or 1,000 houses every year. Obviously, in the last year, that's been pretty difficult. And I hear a lot about people's problems. I'll see that they've got a problem happening in their street, or there's noises or something they don't like. And people do talk to me quite a lot about it. And this is something that in my local community, I'm already heavily involved in. I'm in Trumpington, and we have, fortunately, about 3 or 4 of us are really, really keen on fixing all the problems here. It's a new build area. There are a lot of problems. And one of the big ones is that there is no community. Everyone here has come from somewhere else. And so when you arrive and you're looking to make some friends, you find that there's no network yet. So I've been working actually very hard with a small group of neighbors to try to achieve this. One thing that was really interesting to me was I was working for a lady, a Chinese lady, and she said, well, we already have a Chinese wives community. We all talk, but we haven't really been able to find people outside of the Chinese community to work with. And that was in 2019, she told me that. Unfortunately, this last year has made it basically impossible for anybody to build community. So I'm hoping that I can talk to her a lot more after all the lockdowns have ended, and we can start to properly build a community here in Trumpington. There's old parts of Trumpington which do have established communities, but there are now thousands and thousands of new homes that have been built here where communities need to be built, and it needs the people to do that. And it turns out that Chinese people are really good at building communities. So if there's anyone in Trumpington here, then please go on Facebook, if you have Facebook, and look for Trumpington communities just to join in, because I'm really passionate about everyone here being able to take part in all the events and everything that we do, and also to be represented. There is a chance now for all the people living in these new parts of Trumpington to use their vote to be able to help fix many of the problems they've got. A lot of people here are essentially fighting against giants, developers, house builders, these massive companies with huge resources. And it's impossible for just one person or one family to do that. And it turns out that if you are in that position, you're not alone. There are thousands of people all around you in the same position. And so that's why it's so important that we can all come together. And we can actually make the whole community better. We can make it safer as well. Once people start talking to each other, so locally I set up a WhatsApp group, and now it's got lots and lots of people who report if there's some kind of thing that they aren't happy about locally. So for instance, drugs is a bit of a problem around here. And every so often, maybe about once a week or something, someone will write into this group of lots of local residents saying, I keep seeing this car or something like that. And they might even provide a photo, and half the time it's usually a drug deal that they're taking a photo of. And so that kind of information can be passed on to the police. But obviously, if anyone does see anything like that, then or any other crime, do get in contact with the police, because that's something that I have noticed locally amongst people who are very, very new from China, is that they seem not to want to talk to the police very much. And I don't speculate as to what it is, but I always tell people, please do speak to them if there's a problem. And finally, when it comes to the ballot box, getting really involved in local democracy is the best way of making your voice heard. So the more involved the Chinese community can get in local politics, in voting in candidates they like, the more that voice can be heard. And even better is if people from the Cambridge Chinese community actually put candidates forward as well. It doesn't matter which party. You can make your own party if you want, but getting people forward that their friends, their relatives, their neighbors can trust, that they know what that person believes in, and be able to actually kind of bring a voice and bring lots of political weight forward for their community. That's something that I really believe needs to happen a lot more here. The Chinese community is, I believe, the largest kind of ethnic minority. I know that Dr. Sun said something earlier about that. I'm absolutely convinced of it. I don't have any statistics for it. It's just based on my rather biased sample of people who have pianos in Cambridgeshire. There are an awful lot of young families, young Chinese families whose children are at school, they are learning the piano. And so I meet lots and lots of people like that. And they're usually focused on 2 or 3 things. They are education and safety and community. That's the things they tell me about anyway. And fortunately for me, I'm really passionate about everyone getting the best possible education they can. And I'm passionate about building community. And we're very lucky today to also have a candidate for Police and Crime Commissioner on the call, who is all about making the crime go down and keep our streets as safe as possible. And so I'm hoping that I can instill some confidence that anyone who would support these kinds of values knows that I'm here, I'm standing, I'm really open to anyone wanting to talk to me, ask questions, tell me what they want done, because that's something I want to make sure happens. Locally in Trumpington Meadows, we've had reasonable success using small residence groups to put pressure on big companies and big institutions to do things that we need to get done. You know, things like fixing problems in the street because the council hasn't yet adopted a lot of the roads in Trumpington. Getting lots and lots of little things like that, setting up safe arrangements for storm drains in the parks nearby, which for some reason were left open, and there was risk that, you know, children and things might fall in. Just lots of things like that, that it would be really nice if we could just get them always being reported so that we can solve them. And for me, I'm not coming to politics from wanting to be a politician. It's more, I live here, I have lots of problems, my neighbours have lots of problems, and I want them fixed. And so that's why I'm coming forward. And the party that fits me the best is the Conservative Party. So that's why I'm standing as a Conservative. And I'm very, very lucky that all the Conservatives that I've been meeting so far have been generally really, really nice people who agree with all the things that I believe in.
Thank you very much, Laurence. I fully support your idea of building communities, and I think communities do very, very important. And also that's the purpose, one of the purpose of we organizing this meeting. We wanted our Chinese people get involved and voting, probably in the future get elected. Hopefully we will have some Chinese councillor in the future.
Yes, I hope.
Okay, so may I pass it to Daniel? How are you, Daniel?
Hi there, and thank you for having me. It's great to see so many people on this call, keen to listen to people like us and spend your Sunday evenings doing so. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you all. So yeah, I'm standing for the first time this year in Romsey as a city and county council candidate. Three of my sort of main aims and what I want to do sort of on the council are related to community, like we've been speaking about a lot tonight already, in terms of creating better links with various community groups and charities so that we can all work better together for a better community wherever we're living in Cambridge and Cambridgeshire. So one such way I would like to work with that in relation to the Chinese community could be, for example, with an increase in Hong Kong and Chinese immigration coming, with the Conservative plan to allow British overseas nationals from Hong Kong coming over to the UK. There's likely to be an influx there, and the county council will receive funds to help with that. So I'd like, if I was elected, I would like to really work with the local Chinese groups and Hong Kong groups to really work to make that process of them coming over as easy and smooth as possible. And I think one of the roles of the council is not to know everything about the community and everything about the needs of the people, but to work with the groups in the community that do, and to facilitate that. And so that's what my main focus would be, is sort of community, and working with various groups to get the best for the people in those communities. And then secondly, like Darryl and others have talked about, the sort of rise in hate crimes towards Asians, towards women, towards various groups is absolutely disgusting, and it's awful that it is going up at the moment. And I think it's rarely talked about so much, but it's not really talked about from in sort of local politics, I don't think. And I think it needs to be talked about more because it is a big pressing issue and it affects people's lives in so many different ways. So I think there is things that can be done to help with that. And I think Darryl is amazingly proactive with things like that, and he's got first-hand experience of police in Cambridge. So I think it'd be really good to sort of work with Darryl in implementing plans that are effective, and work to sort of reduce and educate people to get these crime numbers down and make people safer in Cambridge, which I think is something that all local candidates should agree on. And yeah, and then another thing that I think linked with the sort of Chinese community and with sort of more Hong Kong immigrants coming over here would be sort of trying to make that transition smoother. One of the ways is that the county council is responsible for libraries, and someone actually came up with a great suggestion of, could we get more Cantonese and Mandarin books available in local libraries? And I think, if the Chinese community is increasing in Cambridge, it makes 100% sense to get more Cantonese and Mandarin books in our local libraries. Why not? Let's make this smoother, not just for Chinese people living in Cambridge, but also for local people who don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese but want to know. And we can make a better community for us all by increasing those sort of educational resources there. And just a little bit about me. In my day job, I'm an osteopath, which is similar to a sort of physiotherapist. I work with people with back pain and various issues, and similar to Laurence, I spend a lot of time talking to people, finding out their problems, not just about their backs, but also local issues. And I'm also in the Army Reserves in my spare time. So that's sort of like the part-time army. So I spend a lot of time doing training with them in the evenings and running around on the weekends too. But yeah, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask me them. I'd be happy to talk to you further. And thank you all for joining.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel. Actually, I had a very good meeting with Darryl this lunchtime. I'm impressed with his experience in policing. Should we pass it to Mohammed? Are you ready?
Yes, hello.
Hello, Mohammed is
Sorry.
another candidate of city and county councillor.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I'm literally coming back from London. I'm in the train. I said, make sure that I don't let you guys down, and I just want to put my ideas down as well. So, just about myself, I'm a candidate for city councillor for Romsey. I've been living in the Mill Road nearly 10 years now, and I've been working in the industry in properties, letting and management in Cambridge. I run a company called CB1 Properties in Cambridge. So I've never been in the politics in my life, and before that I was a supporter for Labour as well, not working with them, but supporting in a things which comes across on my table. But now what it is the reason I joined the politics is to help the local issues, what we are seeing daily, helping the traders, residents. At the moment, what I see is the Mill Road especially has been divided. There's no community, there's no contacts. Because Labour has been holding the city councillor from such a long time, and they know they will win. They don't have to do nothing about it, and they have every aspect to put down, and they know they will win from there. So what I want to do is, if I get elected on 6th of May, I want to put the community together, help the traders, help the residents, and make effort as soon as, sorry. So the main issue in the Mill Road at the moment is the bridge, which is closed from a long time now. And I want to help to open the bridge and help the local residents and the traders, which are suffering a lot. I think so there are plenty of Chinese traders in the Mill Road at the moment, and they're struggling with the businesses because of the Mill Road closure. And because of the Mill Road bridge closure, you have a lot of issue with the drugs, crimes happening at the night time because of one of the side of the bridge is really dead. You can see nothing has been done. I do understand they close the bridge, but they have no proper plan in place. And what they need to do is put the proper plan in place. If we get elected on 6th of May, we want to open the bridge and put it to public and see what exactly they want. If they want the bridge to be closed, we'll close it. If they want it to open, we'll leave it open for them. And I hope I can help the community to bring it together, and all the communities work together to run the Cambridge. I guess it's a lovely place to live and work and do the business in Cambridge. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. I'm so sorry about so much noise behind me because I'm in a train. So
okay, thank you very much, Mohammed. The close of Mill Road Bridge is a crazy idea. Personally, I think it's caused a lot of extra traffic and pollutions. I don't know what's the reason behind it. Okay, anyway, now it's the most expected and exciting moments is the Q&A time. I would like to pass it to Jingzhao Li, my colleagues. She is a member of our executive committee of Cambridge Chinese Community Center and a director of Cambridge Chinese Center. Hello, Jingzhao. I pass it to you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Jingzhao 好像没有声音。I think I'm not so sure if it's only me. I can't hear you. Can anyone else?
I can't hear you, Jingo.
Yeah, Jingzhao. No, we can't hear you. So probably he speak a lot last meeting. So what should we do, Jingzhao? Can you try to turn on the mic? Oh, I think she trying to log in again, I think. Okay, yeah. Thank you, you guys. And I enjoyed your introductions. It's very good.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't really explain what I do for a day job as well. The other candidates were very good at that. I actually work as a medical engineer, going to lots of local hospitals in the area. And so I speak with a lot of doctors and nurses and other hospital staff. And this is some of the things that make me passionate about our city. And we have such great health service staff that are very keen to get some changes. And they're very pleased to be pushing out the government's vaccine program, for instance. And so I interact with medical people a lot.
Oh, thank you. Jingzhao, are you ready? Oh, still no voice. I think still you can carry on your talk. Jingzhao still has a problem.
I'll tell you. No, I can't hear it yet. Maybe microphone or something came disconnected or needs to reconnect.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, we can started to ask the questions. Maybe I just temporarily host the Q&A time and until Jingzhao ready. Okay, Jingzhao. Jingzhao is saying I'm trying to log in from my phone. Okay. So, anyone has any questions? Okay, Zhixin.
Okay, hi everyone. I can have a question first. So, from last meeting with the Labour Party, and that make me very confused. What confused is because they mentioned so many times about the government, and this election is to the city council and county council as well. But it seems like Labour is majority in the council for both. I'm right? Hello?
Hi. So I think you were just saying that Labour's the majority. I think they were stating that Labour have been the majority on the city council for the last 7 years, and prior to that, there was Liberals that were running the city council, and there was a little bit of a situation where there was a hung parliament, a sort of hung council, if you like. But the county council does have a majority of Conservatives, but what happened, for instance, I know my colleagues, Daniel and Mohammed Azamuddin will explain, the county council will listen to the county council members in the city, and they listened to the members for Romsey and Petersfield from Labour, and these Labour county councillors said, yeah, shut my road, no problem, yeah, just do it. And that was really bad advice to the county council. They like to blame the county council, but it wasn't. The county council was acting on advice from local county councillors, and those county councillors were out of touch. I'm sure Daniel can explain it better than me.
Can I put something, Stephen? Sorry. So,
Yeah, but my question is, because they blame mentioned so many times about the government do things wrong, and okay, county council do things wrong, but one thing is they are majority in the council, and it seems like they don't have much of a power to really push the things to really get things moving on, really, and more as the opposite to them. So what are you can do as the opposite to really can watch them or whatever to make things moving, rather than, you know, just get the question out, but
yes,
without fix it.
Yes, thank you. I think I understand your question. And Ginger, can you hear us, Mrs. Lee? Can you want to just test your microphone?
Yeah, I can talk from my phone. Can you hear me from here?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Great.
Okay, wonderful. Sorry, I got lots of help in the chat box, letting me to check my phone, restart the computer. But anyway, I can look at you from the computer, but talk via the mobile phone.
Thank you on your mobile phone also. Yeah.
Yes. So you will see two Jinjiao Li there. Thank you very much. Sorry for the trouble. And thank you, Zhixin. Actually, I would like to carry on from Zhixin's question. Yeah, like last time we asked some questions and Labour says, oh, it's the county's fault or it's the government's fault. But from the residents' point of view, sometimes it's very confusing. What's the responsibilities of city council? What's the responsibilities of county council? Let alone there is a Cambridgeshire and Peterborough combined authority. So I'm wondering whether any of the candidates here can give us a bit clearer explanation of different responsibilities and different focuses of these three organizations.
Yeah, well, I'll try to explain a little bit from my knowledge. There is a lot more information on the City Council's website that explains the responsibilities of the City Council, and then there's a separate website for the County Council. But primarily, the City Council is responsible for things like your bin collections, the local parks, lighting, and some of the more day-to-day things that happen around the city, whereas the county council is more larger responsibility for the roads in the area and many other of the larger services that come to the city. But and then of course the government itself is involved in trying to support those communities. But one of the problems we have here in Cambridge is that the current councillors do not think talking to the government is useful. So we have this sort of blockage where we don't have communication with the suppliers.
Sorry, Steve, for jumping in. I just realized that it's near 8 o'clock and Darren will leave at 8 o'clock. So probably let's concentrate on the question to him and then we answer other question later on. Sorry for jumping in.
Fine.
I'm not going to run away, so yeah, I'll be here for a little while. Yeah, I'm finding it interesting. I'm staying with you.
Okay, sorry, Steve. You can carry on. I saw it will leave soon, a few minutes, so we don't have a chance to ask the question to him.
Well, I'm happy to let Miss Lee lead the questioning, and then if she wants to bring up some other ones that help are directed at Darryl, that would be fine. Also, we are expecting the mayor to come on at 8 as well in a few minutes. So I'll let Mrs. Lee lead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. I think after Thursday's meeting and today's talk, people will get a lot better idea about city council, county council, combined authority. And I noticed that we have a few candidates here going for both city and county council. Okay, I got some questions for Darryl before you run away. It's great to know that your focus is some of them covering hate crime, burglary crime, and community first. So really one of the questions from Maggie Sun and Zhixin is about burglary crime. And Chinese residents, most time they are targeted by burglars because they believe that some Chinese people, particularly those ones who are new to the country, have more cash or jewelry at home. And so in your specific policy or plans, what are you going to do to help Chinese communities, particularly in some parts of Cambridge, to prevent all those type of harms? Thank you, Darryl.
I was talking to this about this today with Dr. Sorry, I was talking about this today with Dr. Sun. I think there's some history here as well. Now, many years ago, I worked in Cambridge, and it was the case then, and really unfortunate that a lot of Chinese foreign students, we used to get lots of, we still do, obviously, foreign students, and they would be targeted by local criminals, and it would have robberies committed against them. And I think there were a few reasons for that. One, I think that they knew that they would have cash or valuables, and they probably wouldn't report, and they'd be going back to China or Hong Kong, and therefore there wouldn't be a court case. I think those are some of the reasons. And it would seem that the criminal fraternity will still seem to be victimising and targeting the Chinese community in relation to burglaries. I mean, robberies are still happening as well. So this is what I would say. If I'm elected on May the 6th, firstly, I want to know what the problem is. We need to know what the problem is. Is this the case that there are more people from any community that's a victim of burglary? And if that is the case, and from what I'm hearing, it is, then we need to put services and resources into that. So I talked about more police officers. We need more local policing, and very much part of a local policing role is dealing with those local issues. So that will be working with the community, looking at prevention, but also looking at enforcement, because to be honest, and I know this, having been a police officer, most burglaries are committed by a very few number of people. So we need to catch them as well. So strong prevention, working with the community, with strong, robust enforcement. It's not that difficult to catch burglars. I used to do it all the time. Let's get more police, let's get after them, let's lock them up, whilst protecting all of our communities.
And Darryl, last few years, if you look at Times or other newspapers, tells that thousands of burglars avoid jail sentences because of the 3 strikes rule. So what's your view on this? Because people complain that, oh, the burglars, they just get away with it, and next day you see them hanging around on the street again. So what shall we do with them?
Well, okay, some of my opponents call me a little bit authoritarian. I'm not going to say sorry for that. We have laws, they're there for a reason, and they need to be enforced. Burglary is an abhorrent crime. I myself have been a victim of burglary when my wife had her first child and brought him back from the hospital. I do not like burglars. It's an invasion of your home. It's the place where you should feel most safe. So I believe in stiff sentences for those who commit burglary. Having said that, I've also worked in child protection. And it is often the case that those people who choose to commit burglary have had few life chances. So I think it's sensible that we also commit to prevention, early intervention. The police, social services, local communities often know exactly who are going to turn up and be criminals. Well, let's get in there, stop them being criminals, stop burglaries from happening in the first place. But when they do, I'm tough on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Actually, in the period of March 2020 to end of February 2021, if you look at some figures, it says that the burglar rate in Cambridge has been down for about 38%. but that's really, I think, mainly down to people working from home. So it's getting more difficult. Let's hope that low crime rate will carry on after the COVID time.
I think, in all honesty, sorry, did I?
Yes, please, Darryl.
I think we've got to be very careful with any figures from the last year. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think any figures from the last year are going to be slightly skewed. We've seen some, because of lockdowns, etc. I mean, clearly, if people are at home, most burglars are opportunities. They wait till people go out. Not all the time, and that's even worse. As I was the case, I was actually in bed when I got burgled. But we've seen a rise in crimes like domestic abuse because families are together more. We've seen a drop in crimes like burglary and robbery, etc. Because there's been less opportunity. So, but what I am very, very sure, I am on crime. I will hold the Chief Constable account because it's not for the PCC to go out and arrest burglars. That's for the Chief Constable. But my job is to turn around to the Chief Constable, on a weekly basis and ask him, where are we with burglary? What are the figures? Is it reducing? If not, why not? That needs to happen, and that needs to happen because it's an abhorrent crime and it has a significant impact on all our communities. And if it is the case, a particular impact on some of our communities, like the Chinese community. It needs to come down.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And from all the candidates just now, we heard that everybody put community as the priority, and let's hope people help out with each other and preventing lots of those troubles or crimes and make life a bit easier for everybody. I have a question for Stephen, actually. I heard from Cai Fang that from Thursday's meeting, and Stephen tuned in as well, and Stephen has been listening to all the questions and has been talking to himself, that I don't agree with what the Labour said, I don't agree with this, I have a different opinion on that. So what will be your top, maybe 2 different views on the questions we covered on Thursday, Stephen? And also at the same time, today I will talk less. Actually, we would like to hear more questions from the audience, from the floor. So if anybody, you got questions, I see some pouring in the chat box already. Feel free to pop your questions into the chat box. We'll cover them very quickly. And or if you just raise your hand, you switch your microphone on, and then we can carry on chatting. Okay, I'll pass on to Stephen.
Hi, thanks very much to give me an opportunity to rebut some of those things that were mentioned at the previous meeting. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about transportation, and they were certainly having a go at Conservatives on the county and nationally about transportation. And the trouble is that the Labour don't have a very good opportunity they haven't put together a plan for transportation, whereas I'm pleased to see that we're joined by James, and James has a very clear plan for our transportation around Cambridgeshire and in Cambridge itself. So I'm going to let you pass over to James on that question.
Is James with us now?
Yes, I am. Good evening. I hope I haven't missed anything. I was asked to join at 8, so I hope I'm not late and have missed anything important. But I'm here now, so I'm happy to talk about anything you want. But I believe transport seems to be on the agenda.
And Dr. Sun Wei.
Hello, James. Welcome you to the meetings. Would you mind to introduce yourself and your job to us? You work for Cambridge and Cambridge Peterborough for last 4 years. I believe you have done quite a lot of work. And would you mind to briefly introduce that to us so we can ask you questions?
Of course. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for spending your Sunday afternoon listening to a boring old Conservative talk politics. So I'm James Palmer. I'm the current Mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. I'm also the Conservative candidate for this election on May the 6th. This role was brand new in 2017, and I was the winner of the election then. And I set forward a bold plan for transport, infrastructure, housing, and education across the whole of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. it's a very, very large area, and the issues across the entirety of the county differ greatly. If you live in the north of Cambridgeshire, the likelihood is that you will live between 5 and 10 years less than the counterparts in the south, and your educational attainment would be less. But one thing that we have common across the whole of Cambridgeshire is high employment and opportunity. Clearly, transport-wise, there's nowhere in Cambridgeshire that is remote, but there are significant areas of Cambridgeshire that are very badly served by transport networks, and there is a correspondence between those badly served areas and the areas of deprivation, most deprivation in the county. If we look at the issues in the south, of course, we know that we've got one of the strongest economies in the world in and around Cambridge, but local infrastructure has not kept up with the growth of the economy, which has led to extreme pressure on the housing market. Those of you who live in the Cambridge area will know that, because the price you're paying for your houses or for rent, and of course, very poor transport network. So I set forward a comprehensive plan to upgrade not just the road network or the rail network, but also to introduce Cam Metro as well. A fully integrated transport system designed to move people from the Shire across the county and under Cambridge to where the people work, which is not the centre of Cambridge, but of course in the science parks that surround it. Most of the development on housing in Cambridge has been to the north and west of the city. Most of the employment is into the south and east of the city. The city is very poorly served by the road network, and it's very difficult to get buses in particular through the city. And the congestion, the number of buses needed would be too great. So we have a simple choice of either a big ring road around Cambridge or to go under. The cost of doing both is very similar, and under is going to be less damaging to the environment, quite frankly. So we have delivered already Peterborough University, the UK's first technical university, very much a jobs-based, career-focused university working in tandem with the local business community in the city. And we have delivered, we've funded it through the Command Authority, through government, and through joint working with business partners and Anglia Ruskin University. That university will become fully independent within around 10 years, but it will open for business in 2022. We've also made improvements to the road network, certain junctions across the county, but our ambition is to dual the A10 and the A47. We have already delivered, it is under construction, so a railway station and Cambridge South Station, which received funding from government and managed to bring the project forward from 2028-29 to completion in 2024. The bus network has been underperforming in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Over the course of the last year, we've worked very hard with government to maintain funding to allow the bus network to survive. And now we're working very closely with government to deliver a franchise bus service. And that franchise bus service, when the metro is also developed as a franchise, will feed the metro rather than feed the city. So we will have a bus service that feeds the metro and allows people to move freely across the city of Cambridge, and of course into the north of the county as well, because our ambition with the metro doesn't begin and end with Cambridge. It certainly is to go into Fenland, up into Huntingdonshire and into Peterborough. So I hope in a very short period of time I've given you some kind of understanding of what we've been delivering over the course of the last 4 years, what our ambitions are over the next 4 years. But I'm really happy to answer questions, because I haven't really dealt in detail with things like the 100k home, the ambition for further impressions in the University of Peterborough, and our adult education service, and our work with the business board to enhance the economy of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough and double the GBA.
Thank you, James. I think Jinzhou has a lot of questions for you. Thank you, Jinzhou.
Hi, James. Thank you for joining us. We do have lots of questions about transportation, about roadworks, and one of them is about Metro, Cambridgeshire Autonomous Metro Plan. And on Thursday, Labour candidates complained that combined authority has spent 15 million, but nothing happening. Would you like to tell us some updates on the Cambridgeshire Autonomous Metro Plan and also any other plans to tackle the traffic congestion and pollution issues in and around Cambridge?
Yeah, so when it comes to Cam Metro, it is probably the largest single public transport ambition outside of London that's been attempted by local government. And we've looked very closely at how major infrastructure is delivered, and it's not through local officers of county council or whatever. You have to get the world's greatest and leading experts in, and you have to set the thing up appropriately. So in the first 4 years, we have delivered a feasibility study and then a strategic outline business case for Cam Metro, both of which are very positive. And then we've set about forming a special purpose vehicle to deliver Cam Metro. And that includes, as chairman, Lord Robert Mayer, who is the world's leading authority on engineering and tunnelling, somebody who designed and delivered the Jubilee extension under the Houses of Commons. And many of the people who are part of that special purpose vehicle have delivered major infrastructure schemes around the world, including the guy who delivered HS1, the people who are involved in the transport network for London Olympics. When you're talking about delivering something on the magnitude of Cam Metro, you simply can't click your fingers and do it. It has to be planned appropriately, and the funding will come in at the appropriate time, and that will be when the business case is completed in the next 6 to 12 months. We have to follow the government's green book, and that's the actual word for it. There's a green book, and you have to tick the boxes in that green book to deliver infrastructure. So I make no apology for the cost of Cam Metro, where the scheme is going to be £2 billion. We certainly haven't spent £15 million on it yet. The budget this year is around 2 million on it. But clearly, if you're going to deliver something as significant and spectacular as Cam Metro, you need to get your basics right to begin with. So I think, as somebody alluded to earlier, we have a plan for Cambridgeshire. The Labour Party have no plan for Cambridgeshire, and we are working on it, and we will deliver it. And
do we have a timeline, roughly?
Yeah. So the construction period will be around 2023 to 2030. Some of the work could be delivered by the Greater Cambridge Partnership. It is a very muddled area in Cambridge. The Greater Cambridge Partnership are responsible for work on Histon Road, for example, at the moment, which is a bit of a disaster, and some of the local stuff. And we have a very strained relationship with them, which is one of the reasons I'm campaigning to bring the Greater Cambridge Partnership into the combined authority to deliver streamlined local government and single vision for the whole county, rather than messing around with projects that are set in the 1980s.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we have lots of questions covering transportation and road conditions. In the chat box, Laura Chen says, how come do we have so many road works in the city? Particular one I have in mind is Hills Road. It seems to have repair work year after year, yet still have problems, potholes after many attempts. Are you able to share the procedure on how decisions are made on roadworks in and around Cambridge? And Shibo says East Road as well. I think some people will say the big roundabout in Cherry Hinton. And we get that comments from Tony as well. Very poor road and footpath conditions in there. I believe they live in Little Shefford. And also from John and from Zhixin. Lots of questions on road conditions and the procedures, repairing road, the efficiency of repairing all those projects, and also the efficiency of using public money. We would like to know what part of responsibility down to the county council, and is the combined authority being part of that very important problem?
Okay, hold on to your seats, because I'm going to try to explain to you the complications of local government in Cambridge, where we have probably the most muddled system in the entire country, because we have those responsible for roads the people who are responsible for roads and road maintenance is the county council. The combined authority is responsible for the strategic delivery of transport across the entire area of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And in the middle of that, you had the muddle of the Greater Cambridge Partnership, who were given some money from the City deal in 2015 to improve transport and into and out of Cambridge. So it is damn complicated. I'm going to try and do bits one by one. So when it comes to the pothole situation, the road resurfacing issues, that's the County Council project. They have committed £25 million in their budget to improve the situation of the roads. It's always difficult. We run for election in May, which is at the end, so we campaign at the end of the winter when the roads are always in their worst state after the frost. And the campaign usually goes, through the summer, the County Council usually does pretty well with potholes. But when we campaign again the next winter, they're there again. So, but that's what's happening. There is a fund, it's £25 million to improve road services across Cambridgeshire this year. East Road, I believe the problem in East Road is a burst main or a problem with a drainage issue. That's not something that was scheduled, so that's happening as an emergency. The frustration around that is a sensible thing would have been to open Mill Road to alleviate the congestion, and that hasn't happened, and that's very frustrating. Cherry Hinton, that's me. I funded the work on the improvements to that junction. It's being done. Unfortunately, the short-term pain will be long-term gain. I guarantee you with that. But that is me. The Histon Road, as I said, that's the Greater Cambridge Partnership. Putting cycle routes down the road, but they've completely shut it, much to the anger of the local community and certainly the local traders. And one of the things we've absolutely got to do, whether it's Mill Road or whether it's Histon Road, we've got to stop ignoring traders and local people when it comes to decision making, because I think both the decisions on Histon Road and Mill Road have been done without adequate consultation with the local traders, and we have seen the issues and the upset that has caused. So there is a very strong cycling lobby in Cambridge, understandably so, and we're working with them, of course, but we cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have to make sure that there is an inclusive transport strategy for the city, not an exclusive. Cambridge is a small city and it relies very heavily on its surrounding towns and villages. And it also, because of the heat in the housing market, more and more people from Cambridge have had to move further and further away. Ordinarily, it's those people who are lowest paid who are forced to drive into the city. So we have to make sure that decisions that we make are comprehensive and inclusive rather than exclusive.
It does sound very complicated. Yeah.
I'm sorry if I couldn't make it clearer. I hope I made it as clear as I could.
Yeah. As just normal people, residents, we would like to see efficiency really in roadworks, in projects, and also we would like to see efficiency of collaboration between City Council, County Council, Combined Authority, and cross parties. Of course, that's higher level issues, but really down to daily life, we'd like to have more easier life to everybody. Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have people, Yunfei asking about the metro. We have just covered. And Yunfei also sent a very helpful link in the chat box explaining the different responsibilities of City Council and County Council, which is very helpful. Zhixin has a very interesting question representing some businesses. It's about business rate. So I'm wondering whether James or any of the candidates can help us with that question. So business rates are worked out based on non-domestic properties rateable value, and the rateable value is assigned by the valuation office agency, but who might be not so familiar with local circumstances and giving out unfair valuation. For example, Zhixin's restaurant, he owns the restaurant, he runs the restaurant, and he is given a rateable rate of £79,000 per year. But imagine if he put it on the market trying to rent it out, he will not get anybody to pay £79,000. So that's a very big burden for him to run a restaurant as a business. And that's the pain for many, many as SMEs and many, many independent businesses as well. We are wondering if Conservative is voted for City Council as well. Any differences? Any?
Okay,
hope
so
the small business can see?
So the way that the rates of all the business rates are collected by the local authorities, they are set by government. And what we've learned, I think, through the pandemic is that the way that we rate our businesses is out of date with the way that people use them. And one thing's absolutely for sure, we need to do everything we can to help the restaurants and help the bars and help the leisure industry within our cities. And by giving them draconian rates, I think that's something that I hope is going to be something of the past. That's going to be something that's going to be a major discussion point. I will certainly be bringing it up with government if I'm re-elected. We have to look at the change in society and the change in shopping habits of people. And the old method of taxing high streets high and taxing out of town centres low, I think has got to be turned around. So somewhere like Amazon sheds have got to be taxed heavily in the same way that shops once were. And we've got to free up our traders, our independent traders in particular, in our cities to have more ability to serve the public. So I think it's going to be a hot topic over the course of the next 12 months. And if I'm elected, I'm certainly going to be lobbying. But I will reiterate, local councillors, local members get the blame a lot for rates, but they are not set by us. It is a central government scheme.
Yeah, if that can be raised and really improved, that will make huge difference to small businesses. And Yunfei in the chat box says, may I ask a question about the metro directly? Yes, please.
Yes, hi, James.
Hello.
I noticed that you proposed the Cambridge automatic metro plan, which includes 7 miles of under tunneling, 88 miles of tracks, and it will cost around 2 to 4 billion, right? And I have actually several questions regarding to this. Firstly, 4 billion is 7 years of entire budget of the whole Cambridge County Council. How do you get this 4 billion of money to support such a project? Secondly, I highly doubt about the price tag for this. If you can 4 billion to build 88 miles of track, that almost like 50 million per mile. That price tag is already lower than even the transit project in East Asia, which in UK I do not think is very likely. Thirdly, 88 miles of traveling is 1.5 larger than 3 million population of Great Manchester area. So it means in Cambridge you want to propose a light rail link which have 7 miles of tunneling, which close to Crossrail and 1.5 times bigger than Greater Manchester. How that is plausible in this sense?
Yeah. So first of all, we've had recently, we had 3 proposals that came to us in March. They all costed the Metro on their proposals at between 1.2 and 2 billion pounds. So the 4 billion figure is way out of date. I know that's what the Labour Party are telling everybody, but it's way out of date from where we are. Secondly, the actual miles is 141 miles of route that we're taking. And of course, the challenge has always been, how do you produce world-class public transport in a rural county? You know, to compare us to Manchester or to London, we're not trying to build a replica of London Underground here. The tunnels under Cambridge are an underpass, effectively. They'd probably would be possibly around 6 miles, but it could be less than that depending on which scheme we go with. But certainly, it's an underpass, not an underground for Cambridge in the same way you look at London. We're proposing stops at the stations around Cambridge and on the periphery of Cambridge, but only 2 underground stations as such, one in probably in Drummer Street and one at Cambridge Station. So, but what it will do, of course, it will free up the streets to be able to take a much more comprehensive bus service in the city. Funding. And I think this is the really interesting point. I went from the day one when I came up with the concept for Cam Metro, it was how can we fund a transport network in Cambridgeshire. How can we do things differently? How can we prove that you can deliver it? How can we fund it? What we have in Cambridgeshire is something that Manchester certainly doesn't have. Possibly only other place in the country that does have it is London, which is extraordinary value in our economy to allow us to deliver finance locally. So I put forward two possibilities to deliver the funding from the metro development itself. One is land value capture. So we've already spoken to landowners in the Cambridgeshire region who are prepared to sell their land for development for 10 times agricultural rate, which is around £80,000 an acre. Some housing land in South Cambridge goes for around up to £2 million an acre. So if we capture that value, we are able to bring forward significant millions into the funding. And obviously the houses have got to be built anyway. The important thing we're doing with Metro is putting the infrastructure in advance of development. Look at there's a famous picture of Canary Wharf in 1987 with a little railway right through the middle and nothing there. That little railway enabled the entire development of Canary Wharf. Cambridge and Cambridgeshire has that blueprint, the same blueprint effectively. I'm not suggesting we have massive high towers around Cambridge. What I'm saying is if you put the infrastructure in advance, you can then control the land price and you can collect that value. The other area that we can raise funds is by tax incremental funding. That's something that's been used a lot in the States, a lot worldwide, only in the Northern Line extension, which is currently being developed in London, which was £1 billion project, and they raised £800 million by ring-fencing the rates on the new business growth that has developed through the Northern Line extension. The calculations that we have are that we could raise between 1 and 2 billion alone just by ring-fencing growth that the Cam Metro would bring over a 30-year period. So with land value capture, we've recently had some work by Deloitte's done on this. With land value capture and tax incremental funding, we believe we can raise between £2 and £3 billion. So effectively pay for the entirety of Cam Metro, the plan for Cam Metro, through the value of the local economy. And that's where Cam Metro stands out above any other infrastructure project in the country, because we can go to government and say, you put some seed funding into this, 200, 300, 400 million pounds to get us off the ground. We can create not just a platform for sustainable growth in Cambridgeshire, but we can also pay for it from within our burgeoning economy. And I think that sets us apart.
Okay, yeah, but you said you can raise 2 to 3 billion to build this rail network. Based on my calculation, the price per mile is still significantly lower than any tram or light rail project now constructed in UK, apart from Coventry Barry light rail. Are you wanting to copy their using their idea of Barry light rail system, or you using to a proper light rail system, which I do not think any based on there is Nottingham tram, Edinburgh tram, no tram can have such a low price tag as you mentioned, 3 billion.
So the reason why we can do it cheaper is because we're not running trams or light rail. So once you get out of the city, it's simply a tarmac road. So these things run on wheels. One of the proposals from the tech group was a Dromos proposal, which is literally the whole thing is 3 meters wide, not much wider than the cycle lane. That's much cheaper to put in. The other thing is that when we interact with other parts of the road network, we can do so simply with traffic lights, whereas if you have a light rail system, it has to be completely and utterly segregated and have level crossings, etc. Means the price is very, very, very high. The other thing is we would not be able to deliver light rail. There's a lot of talk about, oh, we should have light rail for Cam. The capacity of light rail systems is far greater than we need in our county. So I was very keen on bringing a DLR system initially into Cambridgeshire. The capacity for DLR is 27,000 people per hour. The capacity that we need for Cam Metro is between 6,000 and 10,000 people per hour. We simply, going back to that green book I mentioned, we simply would not get light rail through the green book because we would be providing overcapacity for our economy. So it's innovation. It's because it's autonomous. By the time we build this thing and it's completed, it will be an autonomous system. Obviously, it runs 24 hours. We're not paying for drivers, so it makes it cheaper to run. You know, it clearly is pushing at the boundaries of technology, rightfully so. We should be doing that in Cambridge. Absolutely, we should. And leading the work. You know, there are some autonomous systems in China, but not to the level.
Thank you, Yunlong. Thank you, James. Sounds like Yunlong is an expert on this. I will ask two final questions and then I'll pass on back to Dr. Sun Wei. Two very good questions. One is from Yang Chun, and she's wondering if there will be more train stations. Let me just go up to the question. Will there be more train stations between Waterbeach and Ely? I would like to know about the South Station near Edinburgh's Hospital as well. And another very good question from Shibo is asking, if Conservative is elected, will Cambridge provide better and fairer investment opportunities for overseas investors?
Mm-hmm. So going back to the more train stations, there isn't another train station planned between Waterbeach and Ely, but there are, so we are bringing forward, of course, Cambridge South, but we are looking to redevelop the route between Wisbech and Cambridge. So that's an issue. There's another thing called Ely North Junction that we need to deliver the solution to that before we can deliver Wisbech Rail. But that's very much within our plans, and we're working very closely with Network Rail there. We have put some funding into studies to see if we could open a station at Sawston and at Harston. That's early work, part of the government's beaching revival money. So we have paid for those initial studies, and then we work on the results of those studies. We will work with the local communities to see if they are feasible. Other than that, there are no further new stations planned. Soham opens in December of this year. There are no further new stations planned at this moment in time, but of course there are many stations planned. The second point on overseas investment, I think one of the things that's been very interesting, I think there was a slight change in this in the budget, is that we need to up our game in Cambridge into getting investors in to bring companies from you know, that early phase into the second and third phase of growth, and that's something the United States does very well. We don't do as well. I have seen movement from government, from Rishi Sunak on that, and I will post-election continue to lobby for easing of rules and regulations around investing into tech and life science companies, because it's such an important part of our economy. And I think, you know, nothing has proved that more than the work that AstraZeneca have done, of course, that we're all benefiting from at the moment. This is not something that's going to dissipate over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. It's going to get greater. The investment into life science and technology is going to rise and rise. And we need to make sure that Cambridge is at the forefront of it. And getting that overseas money into our economy is absolutely key.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you also, Dan, in the chat box answering Xiaolin's question about the overdevelopment of the train station. And cautious about time, I'll pass on to Dr. Sun Wei. Let's see if Dr. Sun Wei has any more questions or wrap up for tonight.
Thank you, Jinzhao. Thank you very much, James. You talk a lot, half hour without a stop. Okay, so I would like to give the opportunity to any of candidates who wanted to talk more about either the questions in the chat box or your particular questions you want to, points you want to talk about it. If not, and then we will conclude today's meeting. Anyone has anything wanted to add it on?
So, yeah, firstly, I'd really like to thank James for coming along this evening. Thank you so much. And your knowledge and the work that you've been doing, I think is underappreciated by many. And I wish you every success in being re-elected. I've already cast my vote, but we won't disclose that much beyond this small group. And I'm sure some of the other candidates here in Cambridge would wish you very good luck. And we appreciate what you're doing, and we plan to, if we're elected, to better work with the Combined Authority and with the County Council to make sure Cambridge gets the best outcome for residents. Thank you so much for coming along, James. It's really appreciated.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed the questions that I've put to you. As you can tell, I could talk all day and all night about Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and quite happily so. But thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, James. Daniel, Laurence, do you have anything to edit?
Hi. I think most of the questions were on transport and roads, which are within the purview of the County Council, the Combined Authority. I am only going to be running for City. So unfortunately, even if I win, there's not much I can do about those things except to pass on, if someone brings concerns about them to me, onto one of the other authorities. The only parts or questions which I felt are things that I've come across a lot recently down in Trumpington, as sort of we're kind of a suburb of Cambridge, is how well connected we are with infrastructure to the centre of the city and the problems of overdevelopment. These are, I think, planning issues usually. I think there have been a lot of bad choices with planning in the city in recent years, particularly with regards to allowing developers just to continue development and do more and more developments without ensuring that the things they've already built are actually all that good. There are lots of problems with various buildings, particularly residential buildings down south this way, where I really think that companies shouldn't be able to just continue building and building and building until they're actually making sure the things they've built are what people have paid for. If you've paid for a house that is new, it should work like new. You shouldn't have to go and spend thousands of your own money to fix these problems. So there aren't very many questions that people have given that relate to these sorts of issues, but these are ones that I think I can do something about if I'm elected to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurence. Daniel, do you have any questions? Do you have anything to edit on? No, okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the candidates and spending whole evening with us, answered so many questions, and give our opportunity to know more about you and about your policy. Very enjoyable evening. Thank you for all audience. You have asked a lot of questions. Unfortunately, we can't to answer all the questions because of the time. Now it's 35 past 20, past 8 already. So it's we have to finish our meetings. Hopefully, we can keep the communication channels open, and we can carry on to ask the question to James and to Dara, to everyone, to all our candidates. And at last, I wish all our candidates success in their election, and hopefully you all get elected and do a fantastic job to us. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jinzhao. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tatian. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.